going on with YouTube today? We're good. Give me 2 seconds here. Set this up properly. All right, there we go. Finally, what's the finally? All right, here we go.
The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome on the Sunday night. Sunday night? No, it's Sunday noon. Got an airplane to catch in a little while, so it's a little. We're doing the show a little early. So, but welcome everybody. Hopefully, having a great weekend. I thought today we'd take a little bit of a break from politics. I'm kind of tired of it. It's repetitive. It's all the time the same. Oh my God! But you guys won't let me. First super chat question is in. What is better, a Trump or Sanders presidency? Oh my God. What's better is if that's the choices the electorate gives the United States, then we're in deep doo-doo no matter what. So this country's on its back feet if that is the choice that you have. But when we get that choice, we'll debate it then. But I think both are awful. Both are disasters. Both indicate that the United States is going the wrong direction. It also depends on who runs the House and Senate. I discussed that yesterday. Okay, I really don't want to talk politics, so let's stop 2020 election. And I know that's what gets a lot of you to come and listen to the show. So maybe we'll have fewer listeners today. But I really want to talk about something more important, something that actually you can do something about, something that actually in a direct way affects your life every single day and you can do something about, whereas in politics, I hate to break this to you, but all these debates, all these discussions, even me going out there and advocating is not going to make one damn difference in the world. Or it's going to make a little difference in the very long run, but no difference in the short run. So just chill about politics. Because the impact you can have is minimal. And it's, at the end of the day, how you live your life is impacted by politics, but it's impacted much more by the decisions you make about your life. All right, so I want to talk about altruism today. We got some questions yesterday, and they were good questions, and I could see that people are struggling with this question of altruism. And I can't think of a more important topic to talk about than altruism, what it is, and most importantly, maybe how to overcome it, how to get over it, how to defeat it, both psychologically, philosophically, but primarily in your mind. So psychologically, how to stop having altruism guide your life, ruin your life, spoil your life, and how to really get on a good footing in life and to move forward. So I'm eager to get questions on this topic, on the topic of altruism, what it is, how it affects you, and how you can overcome it. And if you want, after we do that, we can talk about how altruism affects politics. But I really would rather stay away from how it affects politics. A good book about that is Peter Schwartz's book, In Defense of Selfishness, which talks a lot about altruism and how altruism affects us politically. But I really want to talk today about how altruism affects us psychologically and how altruism affects us, just the decisions we make, the attitude we have towards our own lives, how it affects our ability or lack of it to be happy. All right. So that's the theme today. Really think about questions you want to ask about this. There should be a lot. It's a big topic. It's a big issue. Hopefully you got a lot. And it'd be good if we could concretize as much of it as possible. One way to concretize it is to ask questions about specific issues that you face in your life, psychological, career-wise, romantic, or that affect just decisions you're making on a day-to-day basis. The more concrete's the better. So, Ronald has a question. Let me just read the question quickly. Do people accept altruism because they like the idea of being served by others, or what other psychological reasons could there be for it? So, wow. I mean, do people accept altruism because they want to be the recipients of other people's sacrifice, the recipients of other people's, other people's selflessness? And I'd say the answer is no, overwhelmingly no. That is not the reason people accept sacrifice. It's a very, I don't know if I know Roland, but it's a very, I do know Roland, I see his picture. But it's a very, I'd expect that kind of question from a libertarian economist, right? Who thinks that people are some kind of utility maximizers, and they're trying to maximize their own well-being, and maybe they're wrong about what's their own well-being, but it's always in the context of what's good for me, what's right for me, what's appropriate, what's good for my life, kind of my utility. And that's just not the case. People don't do that automatically. They don't do that continuously. Let's start with what altruism is, and let's talk about why people accept it and how they accept it. Because in a sense, most people don't accept altruism, but explicitly, and yet they accept it very much so implicitly. So what is altruism? Again, we talked about this yesterday. I'll do this quickly. I know you're not a libertarian economist, but that frame of mind, utility maximization, what's in it for me, is kind of a classical or libertarian kind of economist perspective. Altruism is the idea that the purpose of life is to live for the sake of others, to do for others, to fulfill others' needs. And indeed, that their need is a moral claim against you. Their need is a primary moral claim against you. And your purpose in life should be to serve their needs, to serve what they need in order to live. Their survival is your responsibility. And ultimately, their flourishing is your responsibility. Now, Ayn Rand points out the kind of the contradiction here. Well, if I'm recipient of your sacrifice, if you're giving me stuff, am I supposed to benefit from that stuff, or am I supposed to turn around and give it to somebody more in need of it than I am? Who is the ultimate final recipient of sacrifices? And of course, altruist philosophers don't really want to deal with that, or they skim over that. They pretend that that's not a problem. But yes, if you're a recipient of somebody else's sacrifice and you're getting stuff from them, and now you're in an okay position, your job is immediately to turn around and find somebody else in need and sacrifice for them. But more importantly, and this is where it has some psychological damage, more importantly, in some sense, what this is saying is that your needs, your values, your desires, your life is not important. The only importance of your life is in the context of other people. Your judgment is not important. Who you are, why you are, what you want is not important. What's important is others. So we can quibble about the form of the sacrifice takes. We can quibble on how much a need requires from you and all of this. And to what extent you need to sacrifice until you're dead, how much you sacrifice. Most people don't take that part of it that seriously. Because most people have this, implicit in Roland's question is the idea that most people have this implicit desire to live, and they want to live. And it's true to some extent. People do have that implicit desire to live. Not a thought out idea about living, but they want to survive. They want to live. And therefore, they don't want to spend their entire life sacrificing, and almost nobody does. There's one Mother Teresa. That's why she's Mother Teresa. That's why we know her name. And there's one guy who's given up his kidney and given up, pieces of his liver and stuff just to help people out of pure altruism. To strangers, by the way. It's just unusual that people do stuff like that. Because on the side of actually practicing the altruism doesn't manifest itself in such, radical ways, consistent ways. Altruism manifests itself in more subtle ways. It gives you this commandment first that you should be sacrificing, that you should be thinking about others, that you should care about others above yourself, above all else, that you should be focused on helping them constantly. And then you don't. And then it sends you these subtle messages. One is feel guilty. That's an emotional response. The other is sacrifice at the margin. So when the cost is not too high for you, sacrifice. It's still a cost. It's still a negative outcome for you, but sacrifice. So for example, almost none of us go to Africa, give up our lives, and spend the rest of our lives helping poor Africans barely survive. Almost none of us do that. But most of us are going to, support charity probably more than we should. Most of us help people, acquaintances more than we should. Most of us, if we get a phone call from some distant family members asking for a loan, we'll give the loan, or if we don't give the loan, feel guilty about it. Most of us who've given a loan to a distant family member who hasn't paid back don't make a big deal out of it and don't go after them for the money back. Most of us, when a friend asks us to do something that we really don't want to do, that we don't think we should do, that we don't think is actually in our interest, do it anyway. Most of us do what our mothers tell us, even when we think our mothers are wrong. So altruism for most people, and I've given up on the political stuff, and most of us vote for tax increases because we care about the poor. Most of us, approve regulations and businessmen because we don't trust self-interest. So altruism has political manifestations, but we're going to put those aside. In day-to-day life, altruism affects you by making you do things that you wouldn't otherwise do, that if you really thoughtfully thought about your self-interest, you wouldn't do. Now that's on the positive side, on the action side. So it's not about just rushing to Africa. It's about the little subtle decisions that you make about other people and how to treat them. But more importantly, and more devastatingly, altruism teaches us implicitly not to consciously put energy into pursuing our own values, into discovering our own values, pursuing our own values, figuring them out, thinking them through, and aggressively pursuing them. Altruism tells us not to trust our own mind. Altruism tells us we are nothing as compared to the group, as compared to the other. Altruism tells us not to be proud, not to seek perfection, not to go out there and pursue our own self-interest, pursue our own virtues and values, and be the best that we can be. Don't be the best that we can be. Who the hell are you to be the best that you can be? You're nothing. You're a nobody. Your sole purpose in life is to serve other people. You can't even do that well. You don't even do that well. By the way, you should feel guilty about all of that. Who are you to pursue your values? Who are you to choose your values? Why do you think you have the capacity to know what's good for you. And why is that even important, what's good for you? The whole point is it's what's good for them. And you don't know what's good for you. So just follow commandments. Do what you're told. Read an ancient book and do what you're told. Altruism undercuts your confidence in your own values and in your own mind. It tells you that others are what's important, therefore others' judgment is what's important, not yours. People accept altruism because that's fed to them with their mother's milk. People accept altruism because it's all they know when it comes to morality. There is nothing else. You're not taught growing up, well, there are two alternatives to morality. You could live for other people. You could live for yourself. You could be rational. You could just go by that guilt. That guilt is a good indication. God gave you that guilt on purpose to guide you, that emotion to guide you to do the right thing. You should always help your family. That is your duty. That is what your sole responsibility in life is. And yes, you should try to be good in certain things. You should try to make a little bit of money. But don't forget where you came from. And don't forget to give back. That's one alternative. And the other alternative, well, your life is yours. You don't owe anybody anything unless you choose to engage with somebody in a relationship. And that relationship should be guided by your values and what's good for you and what's good for your life, rationally thought out over a long, difficult process to figure that out. Nobody is presented with those alternatives and then chooses altruism. With altruism, there is no choice because there is no alternative presented. Very few of us are presented with Ayn Rand at a certain age and suddenly go, whoa. At least that was my response. There's an alternative to altruism? There's actually a way to be moral and not be altruistic? I thought altruism was morality. Altruism equals morality. I didn't know anything else was possible. Now, I know some people who were smarter than me when they were kids, and they rebelled against altruism. And they knew it was wrong implicitly. But they didn't have the words. They didn't have the ideas. They didn't have the concepts. But they knew this cannot be right. And when they read Ayn Rand, they went, yes, this is it. This is what I've been looking for in my life. That's not my response. I took altruism seriously. Didn't live it really, but intellectually took it seriously. Thought it was the only option. And therefore, people are confronted with the situation where that's all there is. The alternative, they are told, is to be a lying, cheating, stealing SOB. The alternative, they are told, is to be corrupt. So they are told that morality equals altruism, and they want to be moral, they want to be good. They are trained from when they're very young to view others as authorities. They are trained, we all are, we're trained when we're very young to view others as your standard of morality, others as your standard of knowledge, others as your authority. You don't take your own life seriously. You don't take your own judgment seriously, and that's what altruism does to you. So, most people don't live committed to altruism. That's why a lot of people say, oh, you're creating a straw man. Because in a sense, most people are not out there saying, oh, no, you should sacrifice for other people. They're just saying we need to be nice. You need to help them when you can. Why? You ask them why. They can't explain it. They can't explain it. They're bought into altruism without buying consciously into the entire system. They don't believe they are slaves to others. If they did, we wouldn't have a prosperous modern world. Most people live day-to-day lives that are basically self-interested in a kind of shallow way, I'd say. But they're not. But then when it comes to certain decisions, when it comes to certain actions, when it comes to certain things, the altruism kicks in and dictates what they do. And again, emotionally, the result is guilt. The result is guilt. And almost everybody feels that guilt who doesn't practice altruism. So people don't walk around with the idea, I want to be moral. Who can I help? Where can I help? No, they don't help lots of people. You walk by beggars in the street, and most people don't give them money. Most people realize that they get nothing for it. And that, to some extent, implicitly is a standard for them. So altruism kicks in particular situations. But again, the most important part of it is that it undercuts your own pursuit of values. And I want to emphasize this. The thing altruism does more than anything else is it undercuts the seriousness with which you take your own pursuit of values. Altruism tells you not to think too much about yourself, not to focus too much about your values, not to focus too much on what's good for you, not to focus too much on what brings you happiness, what brings you pleasure, what brings you satisfaction, not to create a hierarchy of values and pursue it. And that's the real damage, because most people don't do that. Most people, unfortunately, drift through life. They have a few values here and there. They go after them. They're usually superficial values because they don't want to put too much thought into their own values because they've been told that's wrong. And they know that if they really put too much thought into values, their morality would kick in and they'd have to think about how they could help other people, because that's what the real focus should be of values. So they don't exert the effort and the thought into living life. All right, let me take a few questions and then I want to move into this idea of overcoming values. But let me take this. Is it virtuous to not care what others think of you? How does one ignore worrying what others think? So first, yes, it's virtuous to not care about what others think of you, but it depends too about who the others are, right? I do care what my wife thinks of me. I do care what my teacher thinks of my knowledge of mathematics. So context, you have to hold the context. So at some point, you don't even care what your wife thinks of you if you've given up on her, right? But you care because you have a specific relationship that assumes thinking about the other person in a particular way. Howard Roark famously tells Ellsworth Toohey, when Ellsworth Toohey asks him, "What do you think of me?" he says, "I don't." Right? And of course, to Ellsworth Toohey, it is devastating, because Ellsworth Toohey feeds off of the idea that other people are thinking of him, good or evil, doesn't matter. It's that he's at the center of their attention that matters, not whether it's nice thoughts or bad thoughts. What he really wants is Howard Roark to hate him. But when Howard Roark says, "I don't even think of you," that's the most devastating answer that Toohey can get, because Toohey is a complete second-hander. He lives through the thoughts, emotions, reactions of other people. He has no evaluation of self, or his evaluation of self, or he has an evaluation of self. His evaluation of self is so negative that he cannot confront it. He cannot deal with it directly. So he can only deal with others' evaluation of himself. Right? So you should not care what others, in terms of an amorphous others, think of you. You should care what people think of you only in a particular context, like a teacher-student relationship. Then it's important that the teacher know that you know what you know. But you still don't care what the teacher thinks of you as a human being. Only the particular knowledge that you're expected to exhibit knowledge of in the particular class, right? Now, how do you stop worrying about what others think of you? And this relates to how do you overcome altruism? I mean, the main thing is not to obsess about not worrying about what others think of you. Not to spend too much time thinking about ignoring what others think of you. The focus should be positive, in my view. That is, the focus should be on what do I think of myself? How do I judge myself? And then the focus needs to be on how do I make myself a better person? How do I make myself the best person I can be? The focus should be on pursuing your own values. So the way to combat altruism is to become an egoist, consciously, systematically, thoughtfully, rationally. To really focus your thoughts on a day-to-day basis on how do I make my life better? How do I pursue my values? Or more importantly, how do I identify my values? How do I know what those values are? And then feeling the pride, accepting the pride, recognizing, maybe that's the best word, recognizing the pride that comes from that pursuit, the pursuit of those values, particularly the values that make you a moral person. The moral virtues, the moral values, and then the moral virtues. So the most important thing to overcome altruism is to act as an egoist. Now, this will put you into conflict with your emotions. So for example, you will say stuff and then in front of people, and then you'll immediately feel this discomfort, this anxiety. Well, what do they think of me? What are they going to think of me now? Ooh, I said this. Oh, they're going to hate me. And you're just going to have to live with it. You're going to have to say to yourself, I shouldn't care. My goal is to seek the truth and to speak the truth. I mean, again, you don't have to be obnoxious about the truth, but assuming what you say is appropriate within the appropriate context. And I shouldn't care. And you'll still feel the emotion. I'm not saying this is going to solve the problem, but you just have to stand up to the emotion. You have to, in a sense, recognize it and ignore it. Ignore it in the sense of not let it dictate your action. And your action should be positive. Again, pursuit of values, identification of values. Act as if you don't care what others think, even if you do care about what others think. And that's what courage requires. Courage requires an integrity. The virtue of integrity requires you to live by your values even when it's uncomfortable. Even when emotionally your emotions are screaming and yelling at you. Don't do it. Even when your subconscious is telling you, no, they'll hate you. Integrity, or courage, I think, is kind of a subcategory of integrity, means ignoring all that. I mean, not ignoring it in the sense of it doesn't happen, pretending it doesn't happen, but ignoring it in the sense of saying, I'm not going to go by my emotions. I'm going to go by my reason. I'm going to go by truth. I'm going to go by what's right. To me, again, the best way to overcome altruism is focus on the positive. Focus on value. Focus on virtues. Focus on being the best human being you can be. And over time, your emotions will change. So over time, you'll stop caring what other people think. You'll also discover that their response is almost always not as bad as you expect it to be. You've got to just man up. You've got to just have the courage. You've got to just have the integrity to act on your values and not care what other people think of you. I mean, care in a sense that you emotionally feel the anxiety, but do it anyway. All right, here's a quick one. What other objectivist philosophers are there? I mean, a lot. There's Leonard Peikoff, Harry Binswanger, Onkar Ghate, Greg Salimeri, Tara Smith, Ben Baer, Matt Bateman, I apologize, Alex Epstein calls, he's not trained as a philosopher, but he's trained as an objectivist, certainly. He calls himself an objectivist philosopher, so be it. Aaron at the Institute, right? Who else? Yeah, there are quite a few of them, right? Oh, Robin Mayhew. I know I missed some, but that's just a list that the first people that came to mind. So there are probably about 10, at least 10 active objectivist philosophers out there. Jennifer writes, whoops, I lost it. Where is it? Jennifer writes, sometimes you want to make yourself worthy of another's love because you love them, but that would be selfish. Right, yes. So again, you care about what somebody you love thinks about you because you care about them, right? And their view of you matters, and you respect their view of you. And, again, you don't want a fake reality in order to gain their admiration, but you want them to notice you. You want them to care for you. Now, they won't always, unreturned love is one of the great, tragedies of life, I guess. But yeah, it's not like I don't care about anybody. I don't care what anybody thinks. That's ridiculous. It's contextual. It's what is the context. And again, it's not I'm going to change who I am to fit this person. You want them to love you for who you are, but you want to be as good as you can be. You want to be the best that you can be, partially for them, so that they can love you for that and reflect that back to you. All right, Capitalist Nick asks, roots or lineage of major altruistic philosophers? Oh, wow. I mean, I think altruism dates way back in human history to kind of the need of the witch doctor and the tribal leader to control people. Altruism is a great philosophy to control people. You must sacrifice for the group, and I will tell you what the group needs, when to sacrifice, and how much to sacrifice. So that is the message. Every tribal leader, together with a witch doctor, his mystic, have always told the people. And how do I know what's good for the group? The spirits communicate with the witch doctor, and he tells me, and I'm the only one can work with the witch doctor, so it's me and the witch doctor again who must rule you, and we must rule you because we're the only one who know what is moral, what is good for others, and therefore you must do it. So it's implicit in tribalism, in almost in all forms of tribalism, in any authoritarianism, in all religions. I mean, God's wants altruism primarily, so you sacrifice for him. So you accept his priorities, his commandments, his decisions. So you don't think for yourself. So you don't value for yourself. Oh, who are you to think for yourself? God tells Job. Who are you to value your family? I decided your family needed to die. Who are you to question that decision? You are nothing. You live for my commandments. You live for the sake of others. You don't live for yourself. You don't think about what's good for you. Right? So it comes from there. And then, of course, it really gets codified into, I think, Western thinking with Christianity. And Christianity is the most altruistic of all the religions. Because Jesus is, I mean, in Jordan Peterson's terminology, is the superhero. He's the model. He's the archetype that we all look up to. And what's he an archetype of? Of sacrifice. Of sacrificing for others. Of sacrificing to save others. Others who are not worthy of being saved because they are the true sinners. He is pure, and yet he dies a brutal, agonizing death for the sake of those who are dirty, for the sake of those who are sinners. I can't think of more of a sacrifice than that, more of an expression of altruism than that. You must die not for your sins, but for others' sins. In other words, you must live for others, and you must die for others. And that's the message of Christianity. Fundamentally, Christian morality is about sacrifice and ultimately death, if that's what's required. That is the ultimate sacrifice. And the closer you get to death, like Mother Teresa, the more of a saint you are. And it's about suffering. If you're happy, I think it was Kant who basically implies this. If you're happy, then that's suspicious, because happiness is a consequence of thinking of pursuing one's own values. Happiness is a consequence, everybody knows this, of being somewhat self-interested. And yet, to the extent that you're self-interested, you're immoral. So happiness is an indication of immorality. Then what's the point in life? What's the point in living? What's the point of all of it? So happiness is out and sacrifice. So a big part of the tradition comes from Christianity. And then, of course, Christian philosophers, Augustine in particular, codify a lot of this. And, he's a lot about suffering and denying pleasure and inflicting pain on yourself in order to reject pleasure. And then, of course, it gets codified in Western philosophy with the philosophers of the kind of the Renaissance, and then the rest of the philosophical tradition, and really gets codified with Kant and Comte, the French philosopher, and Hegel, Schopenhauer, Marx, and the rest of them, who are all explicitly altruistic. Right? The point is to deny the individual the ability and the right to pursue their own happiness. See, what comes out of the Enlightenment, and this is why the Enlightenment is deemed dangerous, the Enlightenment does not reject Christian morality, but it pokes enough holes in Christian morality to make people think about it. So Spinoza is probably the only philosopher who rejects kind of the idea of sacrifice completely. And I'm not a Spinoza expert, but that's my sense, that he somewhat harkens back to an Aristotelian self-interested morality without really providing a real system for that. But all the other philosophers during the period don't question Christian morality, partially because it's dangerous, and partially because I don't think they have an alternative. They are revolutionaries to some extent in epistemology, but certainly when it comes to political theory. But they are not willing to question the fundamental altruism. Yet, it's there. It's there in the inalienable right to pursue happiness. It's there in the right to life. It's there in the acceptance of happiness and pleasure and living a good life that exists in all of the Enlightenment philosophers. So the beginning of the challenge, the beginning of the questioning is all there. It's even there to some extent in Thomas Aquinas, who accepts worldly pleasures when they have been denied by the Christian church for a long time. So the egoism, the alternative to altruism, is there implicitly in Enlightenment thinking, but they don't have an alternative. And then partially the Germans from Kant on are there to crush that. The Germans and the French, of course, are there to crush that and to destroy that and to make sure that no semblance, no remnant of that self-interest survives. And that's kind of modern altruism and modern philosophical altruism. At least that's my best explanation for it. We'd probably have to ask a philosopher to get deeper than that. Okay, let's see. What do you think of Noam Chomsky? A little off topic. I don't think much of Noam Chomsky. I mean, I think he's one of the most evil human beings on the planet. I think he is despicable and disgusting. His political ideas are horrific. He's a hater of capitalism. He's a hater of individual freedom. He's a hater of individualism. He's a hater of self-interest. And he is a lover of, at the end of the day, he is an apologist for genocide. And just a full-on, despicable, disgusting human being, and I can't think of anything positive to say about him. Compare Gordon Gekko's character versus altruism and OBJ. Who is OBJ? OBJ. Objectivism. Oh, objectivism. I should have thought of that. Objectivism. So those of you who might be familiar with the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko is the anti-hero of the movie Wall Street. He's the villain of the movie Wall Street. And he gives one speech, which is a defense of greed, that I recommend. You can probably Google or YouTube Gordon Gekko greed speech, and you'll find it. It's actually very good, and it's actually very accurate, and it's actually the best speech in the movie. But then he goes on to undercut that speech and everything else that he does. Gordon Gekko is about exploiting other people. He's about lying, cheating, stealing to get his way. He's about the way altruists think self-interest is. Gordon Gekko is not an altruist, but he's a product of altruism because he rebels against altruism in the only option altruism allows for, which is to be an emotion-driven anti-valuer, a destroyer, a second-handed human being who lives off of the productiveness of others. So Gordon Gekko breaks the law. He manipulates people. He lies and cheats and steals to get his way. He is what Bernie Madoff was. He is a lying, cheating SOB. It's exactly what altruism presents as the only alternative to it. So he rejects altruism in favor of the other side of the altruistic coin, which is you still live through others. You still live by the production and the means of others, but that you don't sacrifice for them. What you do is you sacrifice them to you. Sacrifice is still the standard. Reason is out. Living a rational, self-interested, values-oriented, reality-based life is out. Gordon Gekko is not driven by reality. He's not driven by achievement. He's driven by screwing the other person. And the director of the movie Wall Street is Oliver Stone, who is an explicit Marxist, and you can see Marxism throughout the movie. It's actually a very good movie if you want to do kind of philosophical detection. You can see Marxism throughout the movie. And a Marxist zero-sum world view is a view that they are sacrificers. There are people who sacrifice, and there are people who benefit from the sacrifices. And that's it. All of humanity is divided that way. This is the Marxist view. There are exploiters and the exploited. And the only way, the only way to break this, or the only way to achieve a true moral society, is to eliminate those who benefit from the sacrifice, or make sure that those who benefit from the sacrifices are only the needy, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. So Marxism recognizes that the world demands sacrifice and requires sacrifice, that it's a zero-sum world. And it says what capitalism does is it creates these relationships where some people are sacrificed to the others, but that the people who receive the sacrifice are not the needy, they're the powerful, they're the capitalists. And its solution to that is to reject the powerful, reject the capitalist, reject in exchange for sacrifice to the needy. Forever, until you achieve this utopia, I guess, where there is no need to sacrifice, so we're all just running around happy as can be, producing as can be, and I guess still sacrificing for the needy. But there's no egoism in Marxism. There's the rejection thoroughly of any form of individualism, any form of individual happiness, any form of individual value, pursuit of individual values. It's all about the other. It's all about rejecting your own mind and becoming part of the Borg, to use a Star Trek reference. That's the essence of Marxism, and that's what is presented in Wall Street, are these only two alternatives. The only good guy in Wall Street is the union boss. The union boss who has sacrificed all his life for other people, the needy, and is being sacrificed to the powerful, and he stands up to that and rejects it. Okay, James asked, they teach us that at college, I go to a top 25 school. How do you combat something that every administrator, teacher, and student tries to force upon you as an individual? I mean, here's what your daily exercise should be. So he's asking for daily exercise. Daily exercise has two components. I mean, I'm making this up right now, so if there are three components, I apologize, but I think there are two components. One, Remind yourself that you are the standard of all values, that your life, your survival, with the happiness as your goal, is your purpose. That's your life. That's who you are, and that's how you're going to live. Just remind yourself every day. I mean, one good thing about prayer, particularly kind of the ultra-Orthodox pray every day. Muslims pray every day. I don't know if Christians pray every day, but one of the advantages is it's a form of reminding oneself of one's ideas, reminding oneself of one's value. You wake up in the morning, say, thank you, God, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm oriented towards what I'm supposed to do in life. I'm oriented towards my values. They're wrong values. But, we should have not an objectivist prayer, but just an objectivist, particularly when you're young, and particularly when you're under siege like you are in college. My life is the standard. My happiness is my purpose. Do Galt's oath once a day during this period. Just to remind yourself, this is what it is. And then, make it a practice every day to list some values that are important to you, some things that you want to achieve, some things that, maybe some abstract ones, but a lot of very concrete ones. I want to have a good day today because my life is valuable, and these are the things that if I achieve today, I will have a good day today, and I will feel good about myself. Have generally a good, clear sense of your hierarchy of values. What is most important? What is second? What are in the middle kind of thing? And what are just not that important? It's still good things. Ice cream, good thing, but not that important, right? And every day, pick something you're going to work on. Something that you're going to work on for the sole reason that you think it's good for you. And make some of them obviously pleasurable. So that you remind yourself that pleasure is what's important in life, right? It's not the important, we're not hedonists, but that pleasure is part of the standard of what is good. So have something delicious to eat once a day, if you can afford it, if you can find it. Have listen to a great piece of music that you really know that you love and you really get excited about. Go see a good movie. Go do something that you just enjoy. Watch a basketball game. I don't know, whatever. Just get that emotional pleasure from it, that physical pleasure from it. Play basketball, even better. Right? And then have more abstract values that you're going to work towards, but you're not going to get the pleasure from it. They're hard. They require work, and they require effort and struggle. And make those out there. But always remember, in a sense, to enjoy yourself, to have fun in some way. You are the standard. Life is about you. Your life is for you. That's what you should hold. And you should seek values on a day-to-day basis that reinforce that. And to hell with what everybody else thinks. To hell with what they're teaching you. To hell with what they're telling you. You're just going to let that slide right off of you because you've got these values you're focused on, and that's what you want to do. Make it about the positive. This is my big thing about combating altruism. To combat altruism, become an egoist. Practice egoism. Practice making choices. Practice pursuing values. I mean, it's not practice because it's a reality. Do it, but do it consciously. Whereas, after a while, you don't have to list them every day because that's all you do is pursue your values. That's what a day is about. Like, I don't list values. I don't make lists. Because I know what I want to do today, but it's not like I'm doing I have to get rid of altruism. No, it's gone. I'm not tempted by what other people tell me. I'm not tempted by other people's values. I'm not tempted to sacrifice. I'm not tempted to waste my time for other people. So today, I wake up every morning, I decide what I want to do that day, or I've got a weekly plan or whatever, and I just do it. And I know that it's all consistent with my values because that's all I have. But because we're infected by altruism, for many, many years, you have to consciously remind yourself and pursue your values almost daily, particularly given so that's the exercise. 1, remind yourself of who's important. 2, have a set of values that every day you're going to go. And some of them have to involve pleasure. Why are we talking about IP? All right. All right. I'm going to keep this for later. Let's see if there are any other questions on altruism. Another off topic. All right. Wait a minute. I skipped some of these. Okay, what are your thoughts on entrepreneurship for social impact? Like running a successful business is not virtuous enough. Arguments against this. I mean, you've made the point, right? I'm very much against the entrepreneurship for social impact. I think entrepreneurship is socially impactful. I think that's the point. And I think actually making a profit is incredibly socially impactful. And the more profit you make in a free market, the more socially impactful you are. And the question is not social impact. The question is, what do you want to do with your life? What kind of company do you want to run? What problem do you want to solve? Where are you going to enjoy challenging your mind in pursuit of solving a problem? That's the question. And then changing the world. Yeah, if you solve a real problem, then you will change the world and you'll have an impact. But profit, again, is the best measure of so-called social impact. And running a nonprofit as if that's more virtuous. Now, I'm not against nonprofits. Hey, I ran one for many, many years. But I'm not under the delusion that that's somehow more virtuous than running a for-profit business. Absolutely not. And most nonprofits are vices to run, not virtues. One should focus on doing what one loves and enjoys, and some activities require nonprofit corporations. They're voluntary. There's nothing wrong with the nonprofit. But most things in life require for-profit, and most things in life should be measured by the basis of profit, and profit is a good thing. And I've talked many times about the virtue of profit and what profit. You can't make a profit unless you're changing somebody's life for the better. You can't make over the long run. You can't make a profit over the long run without making the world a better place to live. And indeed, nobody's been brought out of poverty through charity. Nobody's changed the world with philanthropy. Other than the philanthropy that kind of changes the world through ideas. That I think has happened, mostly for bad. But you don't change the world materially through nonprofit. The material changes of the world happen through for-profit businesses making a profit. What does objectivism say about laws meant to prevent probable but not certain injury? Objectivism is for laws like that. If it's probable, then absolutely. Now, where do you cut the line of what probable is? That's tricky, and that's what you need legislatures for, and that's what you need. Legal philosophers to figure it out. So drunk driving is a good example. Absolutely, there would be laws against drunk driving. If you're driving drunk, you're putting other people at real risk. Not hypothetical risk, but real risk. You're acting objectively irresponsibly in a way that puts other people at risk. The same with disease quarantine. The same with some anti-vax, not all anti-vax. It depends on the actual harm you're going to cause other people and how probable it is and what's the probability of it. So I don't know, you're operating a crane that is teetering. Suddenly somebody should be able to complain, and the government should be able to stop you if it looks like the crane is really dangerous. So if you're driving in a way that's putting other people at risk, even if you're not drunk, you're putting other people at risk. Real risk, not hypothetical. Again, how you determine the objective values is a different question. Oh, somebody in the chat mentions other people's money. Yeah, other people's money is the best antidote to Wall Street, because it's a good presentation of capitalism, and the speeches there by the capitalists are all good, And he is pursuing his values. He does pursue his values. Unfortunately, he's made to be a little creepy because he's Danny DeVito. But Other People's Money is a really good movie, in my view, in projecting the positive pursuit of values within the context of capitalism. It's one of the few movies ever made that has a positive portrayal of a capitalist, a financier. How about taking care of sick elders? Is this altruism? Can parents expect to be taken care of by their children? Should parents do everything to prevent that from happening, to let kids free? So, I mean, you are under no moral obligation to help elders. And I don't know what you mean by elders. Let's assume you mean by your parents. If you love your parents, then you should treat them like you treat somebody you love. Then if you love them a lot, you should help them a lot. If you love them a little, you should help them a little. But just by the fact that they are your parents does not create an obligation. If they treated you well, if they were good parents, and if you love them, then yes, then pursuing your values would dictate that you take care of them when they need help, that you help them out when they're sick or old, because you love them and because they were good. But what if they were bad parents? Or what if they were just parents? And what if you don't really love them? Or what if you don't love them at all? Or what if you hate their guts? Which is quite possible, reasonable in some cases. Then you owe them nothing. You didn't ask to be brought into this world. You didn't choose your parents. Your parents are people that took care of you for 18 years. If they did a good job, then they deserve to be treated well. But that doesn't mean you owe them for the rest of your life. But if you love them, then then you treat them like you treat somebody you love. If you love a friend of yours and they're sick, then you should take care of them. And indeed, I think you owe, if they're a close friend, I think you owe them as, morally, your values would dictate that you take care of your friends more than you take care of your parents. If you love them more, depending on how much you love them. How important are they to your life? With regard to parents doing everything they can to prevent this from happening, absolutely. Not everything. You don't necessarily commit suicide to prevent it from happening. But parents should, just human beings, should make sure that they have enough saved so that they can, they can take care of themselves, so they don't need to live off of their kids' money. They should buy long-term kind of health insurance, disability insurance, the kind of insurances that can make sure that they are taken care of when they're old without having to expect too much of their kids. And they should do this because they love their kids and because they don't want to burden their kids and because they want their kids to not have to be burdened, not sacrificed, because it wouldn't be a sacrifice, but it is a burden. It is difficult to take care of elderly parents. So you shouldn't take care of parents if it's a sacrifice, if you don't love them, if this is going to be true suffering, not for a value, but for nothing. But if you value them, if you love them, then it can be painful to take care of. What about your wife or a child who's dying, who's ill? You take care of them because you love them. And with the child, you take care of them because in that sense, it's your obligation to take care of them because that's the obligation you took on by having a child. When you have children, you take on the obligation to take care of them for the first X number of years until they're of age where they can take care of themselves. And that's an obligation you make. That's a contractual deal you made. Whether you regret it, whether you change your mind, doesn't matter. It's a contract. You can't get out of it until they're 18. Somebody says, I know this is off topic, but have you seen Remy's video about Venezuela? I think it's just hilarious. No, I have not. And Venezuela is not a great topic to make fun of. How much does Warren Buffett's and other billionaires' horrible altruistic views affect your respect for him? A lot. I mean, I respect him greatly as a businessman, and I think as a productive genius, and I think that's a dominant part of how I think of Warren Buffett. That dominates it, but it's still true that the preaching of these kind of altruistic ideas, these ideas around equality, these ideas around guilt, reduces my respect for him and Bill Gates. Even though I don't think he lives it that much. Buffett does a little bit. You can see it in Buffett. He drives an old car and he lives in an old house, and he kind of downplays his wealth. Why? Why not enjoy it? Why not go out there and have a blast with your wealth? That doesn't mean party all day, but it means why not drive a nice car? Why not, people who are rich and don't fly private jets, why don't you fly a private jet? Why don't you have a nice house? Why don't you have people helping you do the things that are just not that much fun to do? If you have money, use it to make your life more pleasant. Pleasure matters. I don't think Bill Gates quite believes the altruism, but he says it. He thinks he should believe it. He thinks he should believe it. Intellectually, he believes it. So when Bill Gates says things like, I don't know if I should feel guilty about the big house I live in, that's cringeworthy. That's horrible. My estimation of him changes. But I don't quite get the sense that he actually feels the guilt. I get it as more of, with him as an intellectual exercise. He's read John Rawls. He believes in this altruistic stuff. He's read probably Singer, who's a contemporary philosopher. But it's not really him. That's the sense I get with both Buffett and Gates. They don't completely, it's not integrated. Altruism is not integrated into their being. How should America reverse the altruistic policies that have crippled many Native communities? I assume you mean Native Americans. Well, the first thing you have to do is treat them as individuals. So what America has to do, and I did a whole show about this at some point. Maybe I'll do another one. What you have to do is do away with the reservations. Give private ownership to private individuals over that land. So give all the American Indians land that they own within the reservation. Break up the reservation. I don't know how you do this exactly, but you'd have to figure it out. How to allot the land among the different members of the Native community. Get rid of all the reservations. Get rid of the Department of Native Americans, American Indians, or whatever it's called, who treats them as if they're little children, and treat them as adults. Get rid of the special welfare programs. Get rid of all the special stuff. Just treat them as adults. And I think that's what you have to do. And then, of course, how do you get over altruism with everybody? It's you have to educate, and you have to offer an alternative. And that's, hand Atlas Shrugged copies to everybody there. All right. Any other questions on altruism? I mean, bottom line is be clear about what your values are. Come to clarity. It's not going to be easy. Come to clarity about what your values are. Start simple and get more sophisticated over time about what your values are. Pursue them. Commit yourself to pursuing them constantly with purpose. Make your purpose the pursuit of your values. Find pleasure in life where you can, without, of course, sacrificing the long term for the short term. Accept reality. Reality is the ultimate judge. Facts are facts. Never place wishes above facts. So, value things, pursue values that are realistic for you to pursue. And you can become more ambitious over time as you see that you can be successful. So, I don't know if you're in school, get good grades. If that's important to you. If you're an athlete, work really hard to be successful there. If you want to find a really cool girl to hang out with, go find her. Don't be passive. Don't sit at home. Don't play on Facebook all day. Actually go and engage in social activity with the opposite sex, or the same sex if you're gay, right? Engage in finding your values. Make an effort. Consciously choose. Now I'm going to do X. Because it's not going to come naturally to you. It's not just going to happen to you. That's the real evil that altruism has put in there. Altruism makes the pursuit of one's own values, which should be easy and natural. It requires real effort. We haven't been trained since childhood to do it. We haven't been trained since childhood to find and identify our values. So go, find, identify, and pursue your values. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have values that are not values. And accept that. Accept that you're going to fail. You're going to pursue things and not be successful in achieving them. Right? Somebody's asking about the origin of altruism. I gave the origin of altruism earlier in the show. It's control. It's the dictator and the witch doctors wanting to control you. That, in my view, is the foundation of altruism. So the only way to combat it, the only way to overcome it, is to do the positive, is to commit yourself to your own life, to commit yourself to your own happiness, and to go out and act on that commitment. And have integrity, have courage. When faced with situations where there's, somebody calls you up and says, hey, I really need your help tomorrow to move, to do whatever. And you've already got plans for tomorrow. And this person is not like the most important person in your life. And you don't want to help him. Then just say no. No, sorry, I've got plans tomorrow. Another time might be able to help you, but tomorrow I've got plans, can't do it. That's it. Just say no to your family when they put you pressure to do something you don't want to do. Just say no to your friends. But know why you're saying no. Don't say no for the sake of no. No, I've got this other value I'm pursuing right now. No, I don't agree with you. I don't like what you want to do. It's a waste of my time. Know in your own mind what your values are. Again, that's the positive. And use that as your guide. And you don't have to be obnoxious about it. You don't have to say, oh, I'm an egoist. I'm not going to help you. Well, egoists help people all the time. When it's consistent with their values. When it doesn't detract from the pursuit of a higher value. And when, in and of itself, the activity is of some value to you. All right, now somebody asked about a separate topic. I guess now's a good time to cover it, and then we'll call it a day because it's already been over an hour. And that's about IP. Doesn't IP reduce competition? No. I mean, first of all, I'm not a utilitarian. So property rights are property rights. And even if you could show me that violating property rights in any given particular situation increased economic utility in some bizarre way, I'd still be against it. Even if you could show me that somebody else using my home to do something else on it would increase competition, I'm still not for it. So property is property, and intellectual property is property. And defending intellectual property is crucial to the defense of an individual's life, to defense of individual freedom. One cannot have freedom unless one has a right to one's property. One cannot have a right to life. One cannot survive as a human being unless one can have property. Right? So, intellectual property is no different than other kinds of property in that sense. But it doesn't reduce competition. And competition is not the standard. It actually increases innovation. Because the incentive to create something that I know is going to be mine and I know I will be able to profit off of is a massive reason why innovation happens all the time. And if you did away with that profit, if you did away with that protection of property rights, if I invented something and the instant I made it public it was not mine anymore, I will invent less, if at all. And that's the use of force in the human mind. Because you're using force to take my stuff away from me. It's mine. Even if you're not using literal force, by taking it from me, that is force. So no, it's the whole idea of intellectual property rights as not being legit is just wrong. What's the best way to convince my fellow Norwegians to abandon the welfare state? Well, I mean, that it's bad for them, that it inhibits them, that it restrains them, that it puts them in a cage, that it subordinates their values, it subordinates their ambition, it subordinates their potential to the needs of other people. But if you're really interested in that, I gave a talk in Norway a few years ago about the evils of the Norwegian welfare state. So look it up. It's on my channel. Just put Yaron Brook Norway or Yaron Brook welfare state or Yaron Brook Scandinavian welfare state. One of those will give you the talk, and you'll be able to get my whole talk at Bergen, at the University of Bergen, about the why they should abandon the welfare state. Right? I don't think I convinced everybody, but I think I convinced. Maybe I challenged a few people's thinking. It was a fun event, and if anybody wants to invite me back to Bergen to give another talk, I would happy to go. I've done 2 events in Bergen and enjoyed them both, or anywhere else for that matter. If you want to invite me to come and give a talk somewhere, I'm happy to come. All right. Let me just say one last thing. Altruism is not coded in our genes. There is no scientific basis for altruism. There is no evolutionary psychological reason for altruism. When it comes to morality, we are a blank slate. We do not have ideas embedded in our genetic code. Where would they come from? God? So there are no ideas. There are inclinations. There are tendencies. But not ideas like morality. So you can't have altruism in your code. But we can talk about that. Talk about that another time, and talk about. I'm actually going to bring on a philosopher who's an expert on the philosophy of science to talk about evolutionary psychology and why evolutionary psychology is so wrong and so in its infancy in terms of understanding the relationship between psychology and evolution. We will know so much more 100 years from now. We will look back at the amateuristic evolutionary psychologist of the day and laugh. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you listening in. I hope that those of you who do not support the Yaron Brook Show become supporters of the Yaron Brook Show. You can do that at yaronbrookshow.com/support. I value all of you guys who do support the show. I do this partially because I owe it to you, and I value you guys. Hopefully I contribute a little bit to making your lives better. And that's not altruistic or sacrificial at all. Your lives being better is my life being better. So you can support the show on yaronbrookshow.com/support. You can also support it on subscribestar.com/yaronbrookshow. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, let your friends know. And the most important thing you can do on all social media, you can do it right now as you're listening live or as you're listening after the fact. Share the video with whoever you share stuff with. Just press the share button, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it to your network. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have a good week. I'll probably talk to you next from London, I hope on Tuesday, or maybe from Florence, Italy on Friday. Who knows? But it's going to be from Europe next time we talk. Bye, everybody.